Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Dog Owners Podcast. My name is Vinnie. That is Brent. And we are both very excited today because we have a special guest. Her name is Amy. She is the founder and chief brand officer of We Feed Raw. And today's episode is going to be focused on the overall health of your dog. What does a healthy dog look like? Before we get into that, let's hear a little bit from Amy, who you are, how you got here. Tell us everything.
Yeah, thanks for having me. That was a great intro. I am the chief brand officer, as you said. I did not ever intend to be in this position. My sister was the original founder of We Feed Raw. She was a huge animal lover. We were raised by parents who were big rescuers of animals and animal lovers. So it's sort of in our DNA, I always say. And so she had 10 rescues at one time, actually.
Whoa,
Most
she's
of them
serious.
yes.
Yeah.
Most of them were pit mixes, as you can imagine most rescues are, but she had one dachshund that was actually the alpha of all the
How it works.
I always tell the story that the seed was planted because in 2007, there was a big recall in pet food. I don't know if you guys remember this, but there had been a manufacturer overseas that was supplying wheat gluten, which is used as a protein source in a lot of ultra-processed pet food. And this manufacturer was trying to artificially boost the protein levels in the wheat gluten, and they used an industrial chemical called melamine. And then there was another chemical interaction with melamine, but this got into the pet food supply because pet food manufacturers were buying this wheat gluten, and it killed and made sick like thousands of dogs and cats. So there, it was really big headlines and big news, and it kind of like really shook people. Like then they started thinking for the first time ever, really, like what in modern, dog food and cat food, like what am I actually feeding my animal? My sister, was one of these people that really kind of like stopped and paused and was like, okay, what other ways are there to feed my animals? And so she sort of dove into the research and discovered raw feeding, and she started making her own raw meals for her rescues. And she saw almost immediately, the transformation that they lost weight, they had more energy, their teeth were better, just like an overall health transformation. So it just really kind of grew organically. She didn't set out to start a business. It was just kind of the business opportunity presented itself. So she started making raw meals for her friends' dogs and then their friends' dogs. And she was living in Austin, Texas with her fiance, Rich, who was a sushi chef. So he got involved and he was the one who would actually make the meals after a while. And she was the business side. And they had this really nice growing business for about 4 years. And, they would deliver raw meals door to door. They had like this little Honda Element.
That's cool.
And like the Austin heat is just, and this was, way back in 2009. Raw feeding has become much more mainstream. Back then, it was still very fringe. Like it was kind of like, a lot of weirdos, I say, we love them, like lovable weirdos. They helped to build this business, but it was definitely the person thinking outside the box. So she did this and she loved it and she was passionate about it. They both were doing well enough with the business that they could quit their other jobs and do this full time. But sadly, and seemingly out of the blue, my sister was young, like in her early She's beautiful, seemingly healthy. She was diagnosed with late-stage colon cancer. So at that point, my family and I was in New York City, my dad was in Maine, my mom was in Massachusetts, kind of all talked as a family to move them to the East Coast so that we could be closer and help. So at that point, she moved her business from this Austin-only business to a Shopify site where she could ship nationally. So while it was for this really sad reason, it helped to grow the company exponentially because she was now had this much broader customer base that she could serve. And so they moved to Maine, we had our own facility there, and she worked on this business to the last week of her life. She was deeply passionate about it. And when she died, we were all completely grief-stricken. It was horrible, but this business wasn't the type, it was like still very much a startup, like hands-on, not the type of thing you could be like, oh, well, let's pause and come back to it and see how we feel. It was like, if we paused it, it would have died. Like people were waiting for their food to be delivered. There was workers showing up to the facility, meat getting delivered. It was just one of those things that like a baton pass. And I think obviously, the grief had something to do with it. It was a way to channel our grief into something. And so my dad came out of retirement. He was sort of like became like the CEO, and Rich went back to managing the production side of it. I had a full-time job in New York City, but I made this my second job, and I made it my mission to grow the business, to find outside funding. And so that's what I did until it became my full-time job. And, that was, gosh, how many years ago? 8 or 9 years ago. We've since grown the company so much. We have an amazing team, talent that I never would dream would want to work here. And it's just become a great, great company that we've delivered over 20 million meals. We have shored up the business in a way that like I never thought possible. So it's been obviously hard and an emotional sort of like a labor of love for my sister, but it's the best way to honor her. And I know she would be so proud that like we're doing this for so many dogs more than she ever could have dreamed. So
Yeah.
that's our story.
That's amazing. What did you do before jumping into this business?
Yeah, I was a creative. So I was a writer and worked in advertising and worked in my job before this was working at a fashion company as the head writer. So I have a
Nice.
marketing background, which is kind of what I brought to the table. And I have obviously learned a lot about pet food and raw food. I mean, I was a raw feeder, obviously, when my sister had this company, but I have learned a lot and been basically obsessed with pet food for the last,
Yeah.
9 to 10 years.
You said something earlier. You said like back in 2009, it was
Yeah.
kind of fringe to be like
Yeah.
into raw food. What's so funny in the professional dog training space, people who are breeders, people who do gun dogs, people who have working breeds, raw has always been this thing in the background that's not part of pop culture. Why is there such a big discrepancy between like what professionals do and like know to be good health and nutrition and what the masses know?
Yeah, it's such a good question. And it's so true because
Yeah.
we've always worked with trainers, like trainers and
Mhm.
breeders and like not necessarily vets, right? But like
Mm-hmm.
all the other dog professionals sort of like gravitate toward this way of feeding. I think to start with, when it comes to the masses and what they're accepting, it really comes from, the fact that the industrial pet food complex sort of owns like it's the vets are getting all of their information from big pet food. People go to the vet to get their nutritional information. If the vet is telling you like, no, this is the only way to feed, kibble is the safest, the most scientifically backed, you're going to believe that. I think you have to sort of be willing to think outside the box to be okay going against the status quo. I mean, people will find us not just like dog professionals. And over the years, we've seen this is like if your dog has a health issue that's just not being solved in a way, that you find acceptable. Like a lot of vets will say, there's nothing else we can do. You can either give them shots every month. You can either do this, steroid all the time or nothing. And I think people at that point, out of desperation, try to find something else and then they'll, discover raw feeding. And a lot of people have seen amazing transformations. I mean, the anecdotes and the stories we hear every day from people that have been able to get their dogs off of crazy medications, been told that there's nothing else that they can do just from changing the diet is truly amazing. To answer your question more simply, I think that we've been fed a lot of marketing from big pet food for a very long time.
No pun intended.
Yes, exactly. It's hard to think another way because you're like, of course, it's like most people think like kibble's always what dogs have eaten. It's like, well, kibble was invented in 1956, like which is like really not that long. Dogs were eating real food. Canines have been eating real food since the beginning of time. So it's really just like a blip in history that they've been eating kibble.
It's crazy to think like, because again, it's even with people, like human beings, like all we know about health for humans is what we've been marketed, right?
Yes,
and then like just recently, they're just like, oh, let's change the food pyramid. What?
Yes.
For like 80 years we've been following, you know what I mean? So it's this interesting thing of like, I always tell my clients, I'm like, you know who invented the rule like don't feed dogs people food? Is the dog food companies.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
No, but it's you know what, that's actually very true because when kibble was first invented with the extrusion technology by Purina in 1956, their biggest competition was people feeding table scraps. So they had to scare people away from feeding that way. They're like, oh no, don't just feed your dog anything off the table. They need this scientifically formulated bag of food.
Cereal.
It has everything they need in it. Don't feed them anything else. And it really, even to this day, we see people being like, but can my dog have a carrot? Can my dog have a blueberry? You're like, yes, it's fine.
Of course.
I mean, there's very few things that dogs can't have and they're real, right? They can't have onions, they can't have chocolate, but it's really not that many, right? So people have been scared away and big pet food did a really good job.
Fear-mongered in a way. Yeah, in a way. It was just like, so I've tried every diet there is in the sun, right?
Yeah.
And throughout my life, I've always fluctuated up and down my weight. And I just, I do the intermittent fasting thing. I do a low-carb, high-protein diet. And I'm in the best shape that I've been in many years, right? And when I found out that like that whole saying of like, breakfast is the most important meal of the day. And to find out that Kellogg's company made that slogan to sell cereal in the morning, I'm just like, my brain was like, dog food. That's dog
Yes.
food.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's
It's
crazy,
true.
man.
Or like even diamonds, like they have the same sort of story about like De Beers coming up with like,
Yeah.
why does every woman want an engagement ring that's a diamond? Like maybe I don't want a diamond. Maybe
Yeah.
I want a never. Like I know it's just really crazy when you think about all the things that we just take for granted and assume like, no, this is what I should do.
Yeah.
Marketing works.
It works.
Yeah.
It works. And it's like this whole experience with pet food and being in raw pet food has made me look at everything differently. Cause I'm like, wait, it's just status quo. That doesn't mean like, or just because an expert is endorsing something or it's the most marketed thing doesn't mean that it's automatically safe or the best option.
Mhm.
So it's really been like a good life experience.
I'm not
Yeah.
too big to admit that there was a time early when I started dog training 15 years ago where I was under the same impression, never give a dog table scraps. The
Yeah.
kibble is what is designed for the dog to eat
Right.
because this is what I was told. I was told by mentors, by veterinarians, by everybody. When we're talking about this, I want everyone who is listening to understand none of this is to ever shame. A lot of it is just to enlighten. I love that you use the term big pet food.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
To
love
me,
it.
that's hysterical, right? But they have a quota that they need to hit and they will do whatever is possible to hit that quota. And that is a huge problem because it's not for the healthy dog. It is to
Yeah.
make money.
Yeah.
Right.
And that is what I want to bring up next is, okay, well, what is a healthy dog then? So
Yeah.
what is a
Hold
healthy
on. Hold on.
dog?
Before we do that,
Yeah.
I want people to know what big pet food is real quick
Okay.
because
Yeah.
the same people who own the dog food companies also own the veterinary clinics, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And we don't necessarily have to name them or we can name them, but they own a chocolate company too. They own a
And
candy
if people
company.
could Google this. So
Let's just call them the Mars Company. Let's just say it. It's the Mars Company.
They own the most vet clinics
Yeah.
in the US.
Yes, it is crazy to think that. And, we talk about with humans, big pharma and all this stuff. And again, this is to help dog owners. So to understand that the same people who are doing marketing to feed your dog a specific type of food is also in coalition with the same people who are making money when you send your dog to the vet, when you are paying for an oncologist at the vet, when you're paying for allergy at the vet.
Yeah.
You guys just need to know that as an audience. Okay,
Yeah.
That's all I wanted to say.
I agree too. And we always say I'm very big on this, like not shaming people about feeding kibble. But I do think like if I weren't in this business, I would want to know this information and you can't act on information you don't have. So it's like, it's really to empower versus shame.
Bingo.
And like you can do with the information what you will. Like a fed dog is always best, right? Like you shouldn't not feed your dog because you can only afford to feed kibble. There are ways to boost that kibble bowl, and we work with people all the time. Like so many of our customers that have multiple big dogs, or even just one big dog, or are on a really tight budget. Like mix it with kibble. Like just add some fresh, real food. It's not all or nothing. There's totally a spectrum. So that's a huge part of our messaging. I think it's easy for people to feel like we're shaming them just when you're delivering the facts. It can feel like fear mongering and shaming when you're challenging indoctrinated beliefs, because people are like, well, no, that's not, how can that possibly be right? Like I've been, or I've had a dog that lived until they were 13 on kibble and they were fine. And we hear that a lot too. But it's like, well, think about how much better maybe they would have been on whole food. And like, this isn't to tell you that you have been a bad dog owner or that you don't love your dog because you're feeding kibble. But I always say I'm never shame people for feeding kibble, but I'm not going to pretend it's a health food, right? Because it's not a health food. It was never designed, as you were saying, Brent, and I think Vinnie, you were touching on this, that kibble was invented as a convenient, cost-effective solution to feed a lot of dogs, right? It was not designed to be the most biologically aligned with the dog or the most nutrient dense or the most minimally processed. That is not why it was designed. And it does serve a purpose, right? And it is convenient, and it's designed to be very scalable and shelf stable for a very long time. So it does do those things, and it is a cheap option, but it's certainly not what is best for our dog's longevity and health. And we see that in like all of the statistics, which is like, 50% of dogs are going to get cancer by the age of 10.
Yeah.
60% of dogs are overweight or obese in the US. Like these are massive numbers that aren't normal. Okay, so something's happening here. And considering that most dogs are being fed ultra-processed food for every meal, day after day, we have to look at that. And not saying it's the only thing. There's other problems, as you guys see as trainers, I'm sure all the time. There's not enough exercise, there's not enough stimulation. They're basically being overfed, understimulated, and undernourished. And that's what's happening to dogs in America. I mean, we see it. You guys see it, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Wrapped it up perfectly right there. That like hit the nail on the head.
I get frustrated. Frustrated.
But it's really, it's not the fault of the pet owners, I honestly feel bad for pet owners because first of all, you're getting marketed to in so many different directions. Like we're telling you something, and there's like fresh dog food companies telling you something is cooked better, is gently cooked better, is fresh better, is raw better, is air dried. I mean, there's like so many different things. And then you go to the vet and the vet is telling you, no, don't feed fresh food. There's no proof that fresh food is better. Before we go down the vet bashing route, I hate to go do that because we do work with a lot of vets, conventional vets too, meaning like not holistic vets that believe in this, but they will all admit that they didn't learn anything about this in vet school. In fact, they learned the opposite, which is to steer clear of raw diets and never recommend them. So if they have opened their minds to it, it's because they did that on their own after vet school, seeing clients come in with their dogs and be thriving on a raw diet.
Yeah.
And so they've opened their eyes to it. So there are plenty of vets that are really starting to be more open to it, but still the majority is like, they've just, their schools are funded by Big Pet Food, the conferences are funded, the research is funded, the curriculum. So it's not that vets don't want the best for dogs. Of course they do. But if that's what you're being taught, it's hard to recommend something else.
Yeah. And a lot of times, just like people who are listening to this, like curiosity, like just be curious, be open. I'm the type of temperament that like I always try something twice to make sure I don't like it. Yeah, like I'll go to a restaurant. I'm like, maybe the chef had a bad day. I'm gonna try it again.
That's very nice and generous.
But that's my temperament. But at least I'll try a restaurant with mixed reviews. So
Yeah.
definitely try it out because the only one that's gonna win is your dog. If you get it right, your dog wins. And then if not, you can always go back to what you were doing.
Yeah.
So yeah,
And you really got to just take a second and use common sense, common thought. And go, was this animal designed to eat processed pellets?
Yeah. Right.
Probably not.
Right.
Probably not. So, okay, so what other options are there? And then what makes the most sense? Because there are, like you said, Amy, you listed 7 different options. And as if I didn't know better, if I didn't connect with other trainers that connected me to you, I would be stuck in a bubble. And there are a lot of options. I would actually venture to say any of them are better than kibble.
For sure. There's definitely a spectrum. Yeah. Like I always say, like kibble is over here and raw is over here. There's a lot in between, right? Raw is the most natural, optimal, best for digestion. But like there are plenty of gently cooked brands that aren't ultra processed that are still real food that are way better than feeding ultra processed food. I mean, no mammal is designed to eat ultra
humans
processed
included.
food.
Yeah, humans included.
Exactly. And for us, I think I read a statistic recently that like humans, the average American is eating 60% ultra processed food in their diet. But for dogs, most dogs, 100% of their food is coming. They're not getting a break and they have to eat that for every meal. I mean, it's just kind of insane when you like look at it.
Yeah.
And people don't even realize, I don't think that kibble is an ultra processed food. Like it is the definition of ultra processed.
100%.
It's packed with starch and I always sort of give my spiel on the 3 strikes against kibble. The first one is that, it is packed with carbohydrates. Dogs have no requirement for carbohydrates. And kibble is like 40 to 70% carbohydrates. And I always clarify this because people are like, oh, what about fruits and veggies? Like, we're not talking about fruits and veggies. Like, we're not talking about healthy, low glycemic carbohydrates. We're talking about, cereal grains, ultra processed, highly refined carbohydrates. That's what's making up most of the kibble, right?
Yeah.
The second one is that it's low quality ingredients. So, you have like the plant derived proteins, you have the grains that we talked about, and you also have rendered animal proteins, which are the scariest thing. They're feed grade, a lot of 4D meats that can be expired grocery store meats, that can be even other euthanized animals. And then the third one is that it's ultra processed and, cooked and extruded at high temperatures, an average of 4 times over. And they've actually done research on what happens to the food when you high heat process it that many times. And it creates something called AGEs. I don't know if you guys have heard of this. It's like they're these carcinogenic, harmful compounds that form when you high heat sugar and protein. And they are doing a study at MUSC looking at, MUSC is the Medical University of South Carolina, and they're looking at dry dog food. And they've discovered that the average dry dog food, the levels of AGEs in the food is 100 times higher than that in people food. So these dogs' AGEs cause all sorts of like metabolic dysfunction, cancer, neurologic disease, kidney disease, and our dogs are just getting like assaulted with them in every meal.
Yeah. I would say like 4 out of 5 dogs that I've trained like 4 out of 5, just the ratio, die from some type of cancer, or you know what I mean?
2%. I mean, that's a
Yeah.
crazy number. Like, we just sort of have accepted when we are going to talk about what a healthy dog actually is. And I think to start with, I don't think we even understand what that means as like American dog owners. Like, we're like, oh, well, my dog's eating. I take them to the vet. The vet's not flagging anything like terribly wrong. And you're like, he must be healthy. And it's like, that's a pretty low bar.
Yeah.
It's like you're waiting for something bad to happen so I can read it,
Right. And like, do we even know what a thriving, healthy dog looks like? Like, the dog should be like lean, right? You should be able to feel the ribs through just a thin layer of fat.
Yeah.
Shouldn't have to like push around to find the ribs. They should have consistent digestion. They should, be like have good breath. And
I was going to say that breath. Yeah. How's
like their
breath?
coat should be shiny. They shouldn't be in constant irritation. They shouldn't be moving around with stiffness. So I don't even know if people know what to look for. And because there's also so many overweight dogs around us, we don't even know what overweight means. Like, we're just like, oh, chubby dogs are cute dogs, right? And you're like, it's not.
Chunky.
Yeah, it's chunky, right? I mean, I had an English bulldog who was raw fed for many years. She lived a very long, healthy life, and she had a waist, and like no one could believe it because she didn't look like an
what?
ottoman.
Yeah, an ottoman, a potato.
Yeah, she did look I mean, they're naturally stockier, but like we used to call her the fastest bulldog on earth because she was like still very active. We would take her to the vet, and the vet was like, this is the healthiest bulldog I've ever seen. But people weren't used to seeing a bulldog with a waist.
Yeah.
So I think we're already starting at a place where what we consider normal is off track. So like, of course, we're not going to like recognize and a lot of the problems are gradual. Like, the dog starts to move more slowly. They gain a little bit more weight. Like, you're not picking up on these things until like, you're like, oh, the loose stools happen regularly, but like, it's just how my dog is.
Well, it's interesting because even with people, there's a lot of things that we attribute to age, right? Like, is this the dog's getting older, or grandma's just getting older, right?
Right. Yeah.
And every now and then you'll see this, what's considered to be like an anomaly. You'll see like an elderly woman who's freaking running marathons, and you're like, oh, that's the anomaly.
Yeah.
Right.
Totally. Yeah.
But then when you see like, well, why is she? Well, she stays active and she eats good food, and so you see all these things.
Yeah.
Same thing with dogs. And so there's a lot of things where, people will assume like, oh, he's a little stiffer. Well, he is 7 now. And then they just leave it at that. Like they just leave it at he's 7 or he's 10 or he's 9, whatever. They're like, well, like people already have in their brain, like, let's not change their diet. Let's just get ready to get them on anti-inflammatories. Let's just get ready to have the dog on, some type of
injection
every pill. And it is part of it. And so I guess in your experience, talk to us about, you were talking about some stories, and it's like recovery stories.
Yeah.
But what have you seen, can be that you see regularly helped with changing diet?
Yeah.
Like what illnesses?
One that just comes to mind is we have a conventional vet actually, who was just a client of ours, and she had 2 dogs, and they both had really bad IBD, and she would take them to these, like, had them in like agility training. So on the weekend she would take them to these like agility classes and like events, and she was looking at like all the other dogs were like these like in perfect health, and she started asking, and most of them were raw fed. So she sort of discovered, and she ended up switching to our raw meals, and both of the dogs cured of IBD, like never again had IBD symptoms, which was really cool, especially because she was a vet, and like she didn't learn about it in vet school, and she sort of discovered it through this. I think people like trainers and, people that are into this sort of agility or breeders, like you're really, I think, respecting the dog in a way that maybe the average American hasn't been taught to do. And so you're going to look at things differently, and you're going to question. We had another woman whose Pomeranian was having seizures, like really bad seizures. The vet was like, we don't know what else to do for you. There's really nothing you can do. So she just was fed up, went home, threw out all her, junky dog treats that she had, whatever junky food she was feeding. She switched to our food, and the dog had not had a seizure in 6 months. I don't know what, was in the food that she was feeding that the dog was reacting to, but we hear countless stories like that. And when I tell these stories, I always say, this isn't to say that raw food is going to cure your dog of everything. Like, it is not a panacea. It is not a cure-all, but it can be miraculous in ways that you would like. It's just real food, feeding an animal what they are designed to eat, giving them the fuel that they are designed to digest and process, can really have amazing results. I mean, dogs are they're scavengers. They can survive on a lot of different things, right? They can survive on trash. They can survive on but surviving and thriving are two totally different things. And I think we have just gotten used to dogs surviving, and that's our standard.
Amy, you talked about the dog's stool, and
Yeah.
I'd like to, because dog poop tells you a lot about the dog.
Yeah.
It tells you more than you would think. And just so everybody knows, I had a conversation with Amy about 6 months ago, and she told me some things to look out for when I switched to We Feed Raw. Because I fed kibble. I started kibble. I just made this joke, so I'll make it again. But I started with kibble. I then progressed to fresh food. And then from fresh food, I met the final boss and went to raw food. And one of the things that she told me, well, two things. You said he's going to drink a lot less water. And I didn't understand why, right? I still didn't understand that, even though when you said that.
Yeah.
And you said his poop is going to be completely different. It'll be much firmer and much smaller. And I have a 135-pound dog who used to poop the size of a Gatorade bottle, right? Like his poop was massive,
Yeah.
right? And now he is pooping smaller than my can of Zin.
Yeah.
Like it's a crazy switch,
Yeah.
and the amount of water that he's drinking is totally different. So I go online and I start looking things up. Is there some things that you could tell me about what to look for in your dog's poop? Some things that tell me about hydration in actual kibble versus raw food, so people can understand the difference.
Yeah. So raw food is about 70% moisture. So the dog is getting most of their moisture from the food. They don't have to drink so much from the water bowl. And that is something that a lot of people will see very soon after switching. And some people get scared. They're like, why isn't my dog drinking any water? Like, it's fine. It's totally normal and healthy, actually. I mean, they're designed to get their moisture from their food. Most kibble fed dogs are just low level, chronically dehydrated. They're not getting enough. And kibble is about, I think, 7 to 12% moisture. So it's just a totally different. I mean, we have freeze dried raw too, which is a shelf stable product, not shelf stable in the same way kibble is, where it can sit on a shelf for 20 years, but it's raw food with the moisture removed so that it's like an easier way to feed raw. I think you've tried it, Vinnie, like as treats and stuff.
Love it.
But we always tell people to rehydrate that too. It's not packed with carbohydrates. They're not pooping out all that stuff that they don't need. So they're on a raw fed dog will have a small, well-formed stools. And that's a nice benefit. They're easy to pick up. They don't smell as bad. And it's like, I think people really like it because it's really like we say the proof is in the poop. Like it's proof that this is like actually doing something different, Sometimes the other things take longer. It's not always easy to see right away, but people will over time then see like allergies will clear up. The dog is much more excited to eat. The dog has more energy. The dog leans out or gains weight that they need to gain. It does both. So there's just so many. I mean, even my dog that we rescued, I was telling you guys about him earlier. He came to us with like a bin of, I'm not going to talk about the brand, but it's one of the worst kibble brands out there. And I'm like, okay, immediately, obviously switching. But he had like double ear infections, and it took a while for him to like detox from that. But then was just like his coat was beautiful. He was so excited to eat. He just seemed like a happier dog. So it's really cool. I mean, it's just like what you were saying, Brent, like when you actually eat a healthy diet and you feel good, it's life-changing.
Yeah.
And so our dogs, they rely on us to feed them the right way. They can't go out, and if they could, they would be, finding food like this.
Rabbits.
Yeah, I was thinking about earlier when you were talking about like all the bad things with kibble. I always tell my clients like kibble ultimately is cereal, and we're making the argument of which cereal is the best. Is it the Trix? Is it the Trix cereal, or is it the Kashi whole grain?
I know.
It doesn't matter. Like
I know.
it's all shit.
Yeah, people.
Or it's not, or it's not all you should be eating.
Exactly. Like I think there are probably some kibbles that have like better sourcing and like maybe like better ingredients, or they're not using rendered meats or meat meals. Like there's definitely that. But at the end of the day, it all has to be made through extrusion. It all has to be high heat processed. And it's just an ultra processed food. Like you can't make it without a lot of starch without putting it through that process. So, I mean, I think, is there some that are better? Yes, I'm sure when it comes to sourcing, but at the end of the day, it's all
cereal, right? So
for every meal.
I always like visuals and comparisons to human stuff, because one of the big things that I think help my clients in general is like, would you do that for yourself? Some people will actually treat their dogs better than they'll treat themselves.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? So it's more about like getting them to understand. So like you're shopping in the cereal aisle when you're in the kibble aisle. And that's not necessarily what you would feed like a human child, right?
Yeah.
And then when you're looking at like some fresh foods, there's a lot of fresh foods that are better, but that's kind of still you're in the freezer aisle or the refrigerated aisle still. And kind of where we want to be is on the outside of the supermarket, right? We want to have the raw meats.
The
We
whole
want to have
foods.
the whole foods, exactly, and get those things in my dog's body as much as possible. I think the big obstacle that we run across is time, cost, and the fear of contamination.
I would say cost is the biggest one because it's a sticker shock to go from like I always say like we need to have like a reallocation of funds because people they've been trained to think we're only supposed to spend this much on food for a dog a month. But then it's like, but you'll
How
spend
about on the vet?
Yeah. But then the vet bills are in like, a few years or thousands and thousands of dollars. But that's okay because we've been taught like that's how much vet bills cost once in a while, but it's hard to get people to value preventative care up front. Like if nothing's wrong with your dog and they look like they're doing just fine on kibble, it's easy to keep going down that route. But we do see people, even there was a woman that was spending hundreds of dollars a month on her dog's allergy shots. And she was like, we were talking to her after she had switched and she's like, I just had this light bulb moment. I was like, why wouldn't I just try this food? It's like the same amount of money as I'm paying for these shots, but it's actually better. And it worked. She could take the dog off the shots and was able to like continue on with the food, which is obviously just such a better feeling to be like fueling your dog instead of just treating your dog's symptoms. So yes, people are obviously the cost is a big thing. I mean, we do have to meet people where they are. It is a lot more expensive than kibble, right? So we do we offer partial feeding plans. You can sign up. We have flexible shipping schedules. So you could feed raw, 50% kibble, 50% raw. You can even feed it as a topper. You can feed it as a few meals a week. It doesn't have to be all or nothing. I think people get intimidated too. They're like, well, if I can't do it all the way, I might as well not do it at all. And that is not the case. It's like any of us, eating McDonald's every day for every meal or, a few times a week, having like a healthy, whole food, nutrient dense meal, it's going to make a difference. Obviously, it's better if the more you can feed, a raw diet, a fresh raw diet. But if you can't do it 100%, you will still see amazing benefits from adding some fresh raw food to their diet. And I would say about the safety issue, yes, that's another one that really is just, I think the problem with that is that it's really outdated information that hasn't caught up with how commercial raw brands are doing things because any commercial raw brand in the US worth their salt that actually is a reputable company is like safety is a non-negotiable.
Meticulous,
okay? Like, you cannot mess around. The FDA has a zero tolerance policy for bacteria in any pet food. So if you're a raw company and you don't have like what we call a kill step and a strict safety program, like you are not going to stay in business or you're going to have recall after recall. And it's also important to us because, it's not just about that. We know that dogs can handle bacteria in ways that humans cannot, but the humans are feeding it in their homes, right? They have children in the homes, they have elderly people. So we have to make it safe for the human feeding it as well. So we use a process called, I think I've talked to Vinnie about this, but it's called HPP or cold pressure pasteurization, which is a process that's used all the time in people food. So, all of us have probably eaten HPP food this week. It's any ready to eat foods that you get at the grocery store. It's used on meats. It's used on cold pressed juices, hummus, salsa. Baby foods, all baby foods are HPP'd. And what it is a non-thermal pasteurization technology. So it uses cool water at high pressure to basically inactivate any harmful pathogens. So it doesn't use heat or chemicals. It allows the product to stay raw. It basically, is this mitigation step. And with the way that we do it, we achieve a 5-log reduction, which sounds like fancy, but a 5-log reduction of pathogens means that 99.999% of the pathogens are removed. So it makes our food, we can say with confidence that our food is as safe as a gently cooked brand because that's exactly what they're doing with the cooking, but we don't use heat. So it's a really cool technology. And I think most people don't know about it. Even a lot of vets don't know about it. So, we do have to educate, but this is a totally safe product. We test everything, third-party test before it ever leaves our facility to reach the customer. And, everything is USDA, human grade sourcing. So it's just very outdated thinking to say that all raw is unsafe or that, not all raw is created equal. That's true. There's smaller companies maybe not doing this or people that are doing DIY raw. And this is not the same thing. It's not the same as going to the grocery store, getting a package of ground hamburger meat and dropping it in the bowl. Like this is totally different. It's also complete and balanced. So it's been formulated to have everything your dog needs by a PhD animal nutritionist in the proportions that your dog needs it. So there's no guesswork. There's not like, looking at spreadsheets at home on the computer. Like we really,
I looked
we
into
have
doing
people
that.
that I know. I'm like, as much as I know about raw feeding, like I don't think I would be able to do that
It's like,
or
where do
want
I
to do
get
that.
chicken feet? Where do
Yeah,
I
or where
gotta
do I get the, organ meat or the bones that you have to grind up?
Yeah.
I mean, it's
A
a lot
full
of work. I
liver.
mean, more
Yeah.
power to people that do it. It's just, this is for people
It's
that
a
have
labor
more
of love to do it that way, for sure.
Yes. But I also, not to scare people that are doing it that way, but we do think that the HPP step is an important step.
Both of you guys have mentioned cereal and McDonald's and a few other types of food that we would consider probably not good for you. And there's a portion of, and it's not a small portion, but there's a portion of what we eat affects how we are. Not only how we feel, but how we behave. And, I have nieces and nephews. I can see the difference when they eat sugar all day. I can see the difference when they eat McDonald's all day versus when these kids are eating organic food that their mom makes and their dad is not in control of what they're eating. They are completely different children. And the same is true for every one of us goes through this where we eat like shit, we feel like shit. So we're moody with everybody, we're short, our behavior changes completely.
Our psychology changes, yeah.
Everything. And that is so true with it doesn't matter what being, dog or human. And that is something that, Brent and I are dog trainers. Amy runs a dog food company, but the one thing that is always consistent is behavior. And your behavior will change based off of what you're eating. And you really have to think about that and put that in consideration.
I totally agree. I mean, I think training doesn't happen in a vacuum. Like a lot of people will think, okay, you're like we talked about before, you have like undernourished, overfed, understimulated dogs.
Mm-hmm.
And people will, if you're feeding them too many carbs, excess amount of calories, a lot of them too, like kibble is a calorically dense food. So dogs are getting, it's just like way too many carbs compounded with this like sugar spike, right? Carbs are spiking their sugar.
Yep.
They're getting these like spikes and crashes. And then, people are sort of, the result is getting labeled as like behavioral issues. And it's like, I just think training obviously serves a huge purpose, and you can train a kibble-fed dog. It's not like you can't train, but you're going to get better results if the dog is, better nourished and feeling better. I don't know. You guys, I'm curious to see what you guys see with that. I mean, you're probably seeing more kibble-fed dogs than raw-fed dogs
Totally.
because there's more kibble feeders. So it might be hard to compare, but maybe even what you've seen, Vinnie, with your own dog.
Well, yeah, no, and it's not just my own dog. It's,
Yeah.
across the spectrum, but with Crunch in particular, the amount of comments that I get about him, about his coat, this is my 5th Molosser breed. So my 5th, Mastiff type dog.
Yeah.
And this will be the first one so far, knock on wood, that has had 0 ear infections throughout the beginning of his life. Because it's super common with those big ear canals to get a lot of yeast in there. Yeah, it's absolutely noticeable. And typically, any dog that is fed anything other than kibble, their coat is better. There's less
Yeah.
dandruff, right?
Yeah.
That is like the first thing to notice. But his hair is soft as hell. And everybody comments on it. It's like, oh my
Silky
God, he's got
smooth.
such nice hair. I'm
I
like,
know,
"Thanks,
he
so
does
silky."
good. He's really, it's funny when you read the comments on the ads with Crunch in it. Like people love Crunch. Like he's a beautiful. If only he knew how many fans he had.
Yeah, I know. Well, yeah, he's a unique dog. But yeah, it is absolutely noticeable. And you hit the nail on the head. You can absolutely train a dog that is fed on kibble, but if they do feel better, it's great.
Yeah.
Amy, the one thing that I think is difficult, I'll tell you my only difficult thing. I did not get your freeze-dried raw meal at first, right?
Yeah.
And something I will never do
Yeah.
ever in my entire life is hand feed raw food.
Yeah. Okay.
I can't do it.
Yeah.
It just,
I
I
mean, it's
physically,
You won't put your
not
gloves
very-
on? You won't put your
Yeah.
glove on?
I mean,
Dude,
it's not very practical. You're gonna have like a ball of raw meat and you're.
yeah, there's some trainers who do it. I just
they
can't.
do?
Oh my God, yeah. They get the latex out, they get the
Yeah.
bowl, and they're doing
Yeah.
this. I'm like, I can't do it.
Yeah.
But that is actually why I order the freeze-dried raw,
Yeah.
because that is my training treats.
Yeah. Those
Yeah.
are great for training because they're like the perfect size.
Are they
and
patties or are they like little puffs?
They're little nuggets, like
I need that.
and they're like little training size, but it's a complete and balanced meal. So people will feed it as like,
As the whole for the whole session is their meal.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
freeze
awesome.
dried is expensive too because people don't understand. We introduced it last March
Mm-hmm.
after, just doing the fresh patties for years. And it was funny because a lot of people didn't understand, not the people that are already feeding raw, but people that are new to raw that you're marketing to are like expecting it to be the same price as kibble because it looks like kibble. And we're
Yeah.
like, no, this is totally different. But
Yeah.
they're like, why is your kibble so expensive? It's because it's,
The
grass-fed,
meal.
grass-finished beef and cage-free
Yeah.
chicken and only like 85% meat and organs. But it's visually hard for people to understand because it looks like, very close.
Looks like a
and that was
duck.
done.
Yeah.
It was done on purpose. It's another way, but one of our, we always say like we want to get raw in every bowl, however that looks. It doesn't have to look the same for everyone. And we welcome all ways to feed raw, and freeze dried is such a great way. People that might be squeamish about raw food or don't have the freezer space or travel a lot, like the freeze dried raw is such a great option.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a big dog, it's hard to feed 100% free. I mean, Crunch, I think, would probably go through one of the bags in a day,
He
a
goes
day.
through 3 pounds of meat a day.
Yeah. So
Yeah, it's a
freeze
lot.
dried is like you'd have to feed a lot of freeze dried. So some people will also like mix it. They'll feed both. I do that with my dog. Like he likes to have a little crunch on top. I think he does.
You're such
He
a
has never
dog
told
mom,
me that
dude.
he wants a crunch. But he does love it. So I mix it in. And then, if someone else ever has to watch him or something and they don't want to feed raw, it's nice to have the freeze dried.
Yeah. I got to try me some of them freeze dried at my facility. See, I'm sure the dogs are going to love it.
I know. We'll send you some for sure. We have like little sample bags.
Oh, I'd love that. Yeah,
we'll send
that'd be
you
super
some.
cool. Yeah, we've tried like some Dr. Marty's and stuff like
Yeah,
that
Dr.
before.
Marty's is good. Yeah.
Yeah.
What type of dog do you have?
I have 5 dogs. So I have a Great Pyrenees, I have a Doberman, I have 2 Huskies, and I have a little Shih Tzu.
Oh my gosh, it's always like a little one thrown in
Yeah,
there.
and guess which one's the mean one? The Shih Tzu.
That's so funny. How did you get the dog? Like, were they rescues or?
Yeah, so other than my Doberman, they were all clients' dogs or rescues that I was like, I'll help get them a home. And then
Okay.
they just got along with my pack so well. So
Yeah.
like my Shih Tzu just got along with my pack. He had bitten 5 people when I was training him, and I was like,
Yeah.
no one's going to adopt you. You can stay
Yeah.
here. And then my Husky that I have right now belonged to a client of mine. He fell, broke his hip, and I promised him I'd find a good home for him.
Okay.
And so he lives with me now. And then my other one was a puppy who they found on the street. And then I said I'd find him a home, but my Doberman loved him so much, I just kept him. So I'm so fortunate to be able to have like a property where I can have all those dogs and they can run and play. So yeah, super
The
lucky.
funny thing about Brent's Shih Tzu is he looks exactly like Brent.
That's really funny.
Just a crust with the crust in my eye, just eye crusties. That's funny.
Brent, can I bring up one other thing here?
Yeah.
We've talked a lot about feeding a dog and how that affects their behavior. The big picture here is, what does a healthy dog look like? Brent, one of our favorite sayings is a dog's tongue should be hanging out of their mouth twice a day, every day.
Mm-hmm.
I just did this blog post today. Dogs used to live on this big property, right? Because we didn't have suburbs and cities with millions of people living in small little places. They lived on properties and they ran and they chased rabbits and they chased shit and they were a dog, right? They just did dog stuff. And now the average dog has got into a much smaller house, right, with a smaller backyard or no backyard at all, forced on a 6-foot leash with no high heart rate activities ever because they're all like this. One thing I will tell you from a dog training perspective, if your dog is not getting their heart rate up every day, you are not doing enough to fulfill your dog. Like, they should every day have their heart rate jacked, tongue hanging out of their mouth, because that's what they're bred to do. So from a health standpoint, we have to make sure that we are physically giving our dogs an outlet. And if that means you got to put your dog on a 30-foot line and go to the local park, play ball, in some green space, or if you have to start running yourself to run your dog.
Yeah.
Brent, have you ever done any rollerblades? Have you ever done the old Cesar Millan rollerblade action?
Yeah, bro. All
Yeah,
day.
dude.
Rollerblades, skateboards, which is even more dangerous. Bicycles, one dog on one hand. Like, where you get like a bicycle, you duct tape a PVC pipe to like tie them up to the. Anyways, yeah, I've done it all, man. I've done it all.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Whatever
I
it
know,
takes.
that's so true. I mean, it's like us too. Like, I feel like people have to get their heart rate up as well. I mean, we always say at We Feed Raw that we like this saying, let dogs be dogs. And that doesn't mean like no training, because I think dogs want a job to do and they want to be trained. That is letting a dog be a dog, but like, let dogs be dogs. Like, let them get dirty, let them sniff, let them they don't have to be like, they're not designed to live on a couch all day and eat only ultra processed pellets. They need to
Exactly.
be in nature. They need to be
Yes.
I mean, the sniffing is like a huge thing. I always see people when I'm walking, they're like pulling the dog, and it's like, that's such a big part. I mean, you guys tell me, but isn't that like, that's such a big part of their stimulation and how they
Yeah.
communicate with the world? I don't know if you guys have read the book, The Forever Dog by Dr. Karen Becker, but she talks about that a lot. Like she calls them sniffaries, like just,
Snuffaries,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
like,
I have a little bone to pick with Karen Becker after her most recent post yesterday. That was not
oh, is she's
particularly
like
cool.
again, I don't follow her all the time, but I
Yeah.
think she's against, is she against balanced dog trainers? Is that why?
No, I mean, her book was great. Her book
Yeah,
was eye-opening and her posts are great, but it was something along the lines of like never use a flexi lead, always put your dog on a harness and a firm 4 to 6 foot leash.
yeah,
And that kind of goes counter against everything I just said of like your dog needs to run.
yeah,
Yeah, your
yeah,
dog's
Dog
a
should
dude.
not be
yeah,
withheld
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
to a
Well,
4 to 6
I
leash.
think
But nutrition-wise, genius. Like I love
yeah,
it.
yeah,
Love a lot
she's
of the stuff she puts out.
yeah,
Yeah. As a dog trainer, we find ourselves like we're trying to give people modern day advice to do
yeah,
the shit that we used to do 100 years ago with our
yeah,
dogs, right?
yeah,
And everything from like people sometimes just need permission and they need ways of navigating, well, how do I do it in modern day? Like I don't have a
yes,
ranch.
right,
So that you have to
right,
go out of your way. But I think I told you this the other day. I was like, the Girl Scouts of America want me to give them a little workshop. And so they came to my facility and I had 12-year-olds. And one of the things that I told them was they were like, so talk to us about the dog
yeah,
human connection. And I told them, I said, dogs are our last connection to nature because over the last 50 years, we've lost our connection to the nature of things. And if you do right by a dog, you will regain connection back to the nature of things.
it's true, yeah,
Like learning what to eat, like this is a great talk because it's like, where in someone's brain does it make sense that dogs should eat kibble? Well, if you go back in time, what we did 100 years ago, they didn't eat kibble and people didn't have gym memberships 100 years ago. They just
yeah,
went outside.
yeah.
You know what I mean?
I know,
And
it's
dogs
very
just went outside,
I
so
know. They can teach us so much, especially, technology gets crazier and AI and like we're all on our phones and like we're never really paying attention. Like dogs are just being dogs and like they just want to sniff and they're just happy to be even this is, maybe a little sad, but my sister was dying. Like she just wanted to be around her dogs more. They're just sort of level and everything to a place of like what's important. And I think they do teach us a lot still. And it's just like they're completely oblivious to all of this crazy
yeah,
stuff that we're dealing with in like the world and like, again, AI and like having to be on our phones constantly, our constant
yeah,
like connection to everything. So I think it's cool when we meet people like you guys who are also so in tune with animals like that because it's almost like a spiritual thing, right? Like you really have to connect on like a level that I think people aren't able to naturally. So just to have that natural, I think people can get there, but like that you
yeah.
guys have that natural sort of
Well,
ability is really cool.
and what's so interesting is I think then this is just again we're getting more into this not off topic stuff, but I think people naturally can. We
Yes,
just get
yes.
distracted from it,
Right. But I
right?
think like you might have the more of it's just
Yeah.
more available to you than maybe some people have to work harder to see it or
Yes, and nothing will get me off my phone quicker than my fucking Doberman, right? So if I'm on my phone like this, he'll come
yeah.
and be like, "Get that shit out of your
Yeah.
hand," and he'll be like, "Go play with me." So like
Yeah.
dogs are again, they reattach us to our connection to nature. Like if
Yeah.
we do right by the dog, we will regain a connection to nature again. I love it, man, and there's so
Yeah.
many reasons why we love dogs, and why you love dogs, and
Yeah.
and the people listening to this podcast, like there's a reason why we want them around and they want us around.
Yes. Yeah, I know. Well, we did domesticate them for a reason. They're the best companions ever. We also work with Tom Davis. You guys know
Yeah.
Tom, right?
Yeah.
But we've been
Fuck
working with him
Tom.
for
I'm just
what?
joking. He's great. I love Tom.
Don't
He's such
show
a good
offense.
guy.
I
I've
know
never met him, just chat with him. He's a
he's a
nice guy.
great guy. We've been working with him for years, and I've
Yeah.
like hung out with him a bunch of times. And he's a really he's the same though, where he just always had this sort of like natural, I don't know, ability to understand what dogs need. Because I know everyone can learn. I just think some people, it's a talent, it's a skill, I guess, or it's a connection that is so you're able to see things, I think, easier than other people when it comes to
I would argue the biggest thing we all have in common, Tom included, because we're buddies,
yeah,
is at some point in our life we were given the freedom to be curious.
yeah,
So we had to be curious. We had to understand, why does that happen to that, and why does this happen, and then why does that happen, and then it made us pay attention to patterns.
yeah,
And we're fortunate for that. So like
Yeah.
I didn't have parents that were barking down my ass. You gotta be this. You gotta be
Yeah.
this. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So
Yeah.
like I don't think I mean maybe some dog trainers did, but
Yeah.
like at least I know for us three that wasn't the case. So
Yeah.
and we were able to kind of follow our curiosities and it led us here. So
Yeah.
Back to that topic, Amy, you were talking about just sitting with your dog and
hmm
being with your dog. I had to search this because I didn't want to butcher this quote, but it is my favorite quote of all time, even though I couldn't repeat it without looking it up. But it's to sit with a dog on a hillside on a glorious afternoon is to be back in Eden, where doing nothing was not boring, it was peace. And I love that.
Yes.
And I often get caught up in this same world where I'm like, I've got to do this. And I go, look, I'm this and this. And the
Yeah.
news is this. And it's
Yeah.
like, oh God, it is so nice just to sit there with your dog and
Yeah.
exist and to
I
be
know.
present.
And they're so happy to just be with you. Like, it's such a good reminder that, like, yes, you can be completely content and happy just being, because we're surrounded by other humans all the time that aren't feeling that, right? And like, we're all just like caught up in this together, but like the dogs are just, and we owe it to them to give them, I think, a good life. In my neighborhood, there's a guy, and I feel bad. He's an older gentleman and he is, not able to walk very well, and his dog is just so obese, the poor thing, and he has a dog walker there comes, but the dog doesn't even really want to walk anymore, and I'm like, I've offered to give him the raw food, and he's like, "Oh, no, he's on a very strict prescription diet." I'm like, just give
he's
him
like
the
just
food."
Big Macs and
Well,
double
no,
cheeseburger.
probably a prescription diet from the vet, but like, still another ultra processed food. But it's not that he doesn't want the best for his dog or anything, but like, there's a lot of dogs suffering because, like you guys said, they're not getting the exercise they need, they're not being fed right. People don't understand what that means. And I think we always say, like, for our company, we don't attract people that view their dogs as just dogs. Like, we're not like, oh, it's just a dog company. Like, that's not us. Like, it's like people view their dogs as family members. And not to say that kibble feeders don't feel that way either, but if you don't view your dog as a family member and you're just like, it's just a dog, you're never going to feed this way. It's just not going to make sense to you. You're not going to see it be worth the money. So it's cool to be in this business because I don't feel that way about dogs, and nobody that works here feels that way about dogs. So you sort of like get to be around people that are really cool and truly love animals, which I think is cool. I have a hard time being around people that aren't
Agreed.
kind to animals or don't like them. I mean, it wouldn't be friends.
So Amy, we've talked a lot about some of the ailments that dogs deal with on a regular basis, some of the things that we've accepted culturally as dog owners and that we kind of accept as normal, right? But we've also talked about the mission of your company. And, one of the big things me and Vinnie, we never wanted this to become an ad for We Feed Raw. We wanted this to be an educational thing, a discussion between dog lovers who really want what's best for dogs. And one of the main reasons we have you on is because we really believe that kibble is not the best way to go, but we understand why people use kibble. And if we can guide people into the right direction to have a healthier dog, that's what we want to do. What is some advice you have? Like what are some stepping stones that we can follow to have a healthier dog diet so that people listening can start today?
Yeah, great question. I think that you can boost your kibble bowls in so many different easy ways, like starting with what's in your own fridge, and that information is pretty much everywhere, easily accessible now. I know I mentioned the Forever Dog book by Dr. Karen Becker. That's a great resource. She talks a lot about adding 10% fresh, real food to your dog's kibble bowls and having that make a difference. So if that's an easy way to get people to start and then just kind of like get more comfortable with feeding real food, I love giving people that tip. Even like on our Instagram, we do that a lot. We talk about, things to add, toppers, whether it's like blueberries or even your own steamed veggies from leftover from your dinner, maybe made some chicken and it's not heavily seasoned. Adding real food to your dog's ultra processed diet is going to make a difference. It doesn't have to be a fully raw diet from We Feed Raw at all. Obviously, we think that's best. That's why this company exists. If we thought kibble were a good option, we wouldn't be a company. So I do think like the ultimate goal is getting closer to a natural, fresh, raw diet. You can also add fresh, raw food from, there are many commercial raw pet food companies where one of them we deliver directly to your door, but you can go into a pet food store that has a freezer and you can find a bag of another brand, right? And start adding that in whatever way is comfortable for you, to fit your budget and your lifestyle, and it will still make a difference. So it doesn't have to be, I know we talked about earlier, all or nothing. That's definitely a spectrum. We do try to make that easy for people. So, signing up for partial plans, having a flexible shipping schedule so you can pause, start again, like, push your shipments out, longer. So you're basically making it work for your budget. And, it's not that hard. Like you just even adding like a little bit of raw food to your dog's kibble bowls, it's not like some crazy mathematical equation that you're not going to get right. Like I think people kind of overthink it, and we're always, here to help people with all of those questions. So I think starting with real food, adding real food, it doesn't have to be raw, it doesn't even have to be meat, like sometimes just like some healthy fruits and veggies. I will say that dogs are meat eaters though. They do thrive on meat. That is their source of energy, is like fat and protein. So the closer you can get to their natural diet, I think the better results you'll see. Obviously, the more that you feed, the better, but there's ways to do it that still allow you to even feed mainly a kibble diet and just get some fresh raw food in there.
I love that. I love that. I think it kind of provides people with the ability to just start making a change, right? And at the
Yes.
end of the day, if you guys are like me, I've had several dogs die from cancer. And so every new dog that I get, I'm always trying to do something a little bit different. And I know it's hard because different genetics, different breeds, different dogs.
Yes.
I've had enough dogs in my life where I know that adjusting diet, I haven't gotten full raw yet, but
Okay.
adjusting their diets has helped at least
Yeah.
see more energy throughout their age. I have a Great Pyrenees. He's 10 years old right now, and he's doing a lot better since I've adjusted his diet. So I'm really excited to experiment a little bit more,
Yeah.
and to see what kind of changes are going to happen with my own dogs.
Yeah, I know. It's really cool to see. And once you start to like see it, you can't unsee it. You're like, okay, this is how
Yeah.
it's supposed to be.
And it's the same with my own health journey, is just like, you can't, once you know better, you do better. And
Yes.
like once I realized like, wow, I was eating too much, or I was eating highly processed, or I was eating too many carbs, or I was having
Yeah.
too much sugar.
Yeah.
Like if it's not good for humans, guys, it's probably definitely not good for dogs. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know, especially like people say like, oh, well, why would I feed my dog raw? I'm not supposed to eat raw. And we're like, well, we have completely different digestive
Yeah.
systems, right? Dogs are still very much meat eaters, like, any expert, a nutrition expert, that sort of like even the PhD nutritionist we work with, like you can look at any animal's biological makeup and it shows you what they should be eating. Like horses are herbivores, they should be eating plant matter. You can see that their jaws move side to side. They have big flat molars. Dogs have sharp, pointy teeth. They have jaws. Yeah, they open and shut like this. They have short, fast digestive tracts to handle bacteria. It's not that complicated, right? Like they can survive on a lot of different things like we talked about, but what they'll thrive on is what nature decided is best for them. And that's a raw meat-based diet.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. I want to thank you so much, Amy, for
Thank
being
you,
on
Brent.
this podcast. This is such a pleasure meeting you. You're such a wonderful person. I can feel your heart through the screen. So thanks for
you.
jumping on with us. Guys, my name is Brent LaBrada, and that's Vinnie Somma. And this is another episode of the Dog Owners Podcast. I want to thank our special guest, Amy, for jumping on again. And we'll see you guys on the next episode. Peace.